Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I said I'd make a video about PCSing to Hawaii, so that's what this one is going to be about. Just moved here back in March, so some of this stuff is still pretty fresh. I thought I'd make a video because there's always people asking. So if you're just now starting the process, I hope this video helps or at least get you in the right direction. So if you are interested, continue watching. So even before we got orders, we kind of had an indication that we were going to be going to Hawaii. So we actually started looking into the information that we may need. We have a dog and a cat, and so we knew that there were regulations for animals, so we figured we would just start early and find some information that we possibly could. It doesn't hurt, so at least you know the process and what you're gonna have to start scheduling appointments and stuff for. And I'll get to the pets. But when you do get orders, I joined some Facebook groups. Obviously, there's like a ton, and I'm sure you've already been in a few. But they're just always a great source for information. I did notice though, especially like a big hub like Hawaii, they always tend to ask the same questions. So what I recommend is go to those Facebook pages and in the search bar, just type whatever you're looking for. TLA, housing, pets, activities, any of those words are gonna pop up like a ton of different threads, and you'll get information that way. I mean, you can still post obviously, but sometimes not as many people will respond because they've already answered those questions before. So then you can just find different threads and you can actually find more information doing it that way. So I recommend doing that. I went on there more so because we knew we weren't going to live on post. If you're going to live on post, you should already put on the waiting list for housing before you even get here. And you can do that. I know there are some places that or people think that they can't. But we had already done that just because we weren't sure of the area, so we just put ourselves on the waiting list, and they'll just call you and say, hey, there's a house available, and if you're not on island yet, you just say, hey, we're not there yet. They'll put you back on the waiting list, and so it's not like you can't get on the waiting list early. But we knew we weren't going to probably live on post, so what I did was I started asking just different areas or the top 3 areas that people recommend. And then I kind of started searching from there. But I'll get into all the pets and the housing and stuff. I'm going to kind of try and do it in an order, okay? So let's see what's next on my list here. Oh, before even leaving, we came across all different kinds of fees. Especially if you have pets and multiple pets, you need to put some money away. Yes, you have a travel card. But there are things that you're not allowed to even put on your travel card. So you need to have some backup money. And when I say backup money, we spent about $8,000. So, and each situation is different. I'll kind of explain ours. But I've also seen on other pages that that's average of how much you could be spending to get to Hawaii. So $5,000 to $10,000 is probably a safe area to have as backup money. And like I said, those can be pet fees, rental fees, unexpected costs, food. TLA, again, I'll get to that stuff, but so some of this money you will get back, but you may just have to cough up some of this money up front. So just be prepared. Have some money saved. We'd had no idea, and we like wiped out our savings, and we're replenishing it now, but it was kind of like a hot mess when we didn't realize like how much money we actually should have had on hand. Hey, so in the middle of editing my video, I realized I didn't really kind of explain our travel process and why there was like more cost involved. So I did mention that we went to Washington. So when you're picking flights and having to pay, you can actually go to on post and they have like a travel person that helps you. But what we found out was they will only pay for you to go from one duty station to another. They will not pay for you to go and visit family and then go to where you're going. So we were leaving from Fort Rucker, Alabama to come to Oahu. But in between, we're like, well, he had over like a month before he had to report to duty. So we're like, we're going to go home. So we planned on leaving Alabama and then going to Washington, and that's where my family is at, and leave from California, and like we're going to drive down from Washington and leave from California because the flight was a little bit shorter. So when we try to figure out how to pay for it, they wouldn't pay for our flight from Alabama to Washington and then Washington to Hawaii because it wasn't a direct duty station to duty station. So we had to cough up the money to pay for our flights. I know we figured out a way for them to pay for part of it. I think it was the flight from Alabama to Washington. I remember one of the flights they did take care of, but the remaining and anything that happens with your travel that's not, like government issued, they're not going to pay for, which was like, really? So that is kind of our situation. So, and I mean, a lot of families do that. A lot of families like to go home or try and, take different ways to get to a certain place. So you just have to go to your travel agency. And I mean, I have heard little gets around, and we tried, but for whatever reason, our travel guidance or coordinators just flat out said they don't do that. So we ended up having to pay for our flights. So that's kind of what happened with us. Okay. But okay, so let me then move into pets. If you don't have pets, it's a lot simpler, and if you're taking pets on the plane, there's a difference there too. So we have a dog and a cat. Our dog is a little over 80 pounds, and then we have a cat who's also diabetic. So our dog went under the plane, and then our cat went on the plane with us. There are some airlines and certain dog breeds that you can take on the plane with you, and if they're small enough, they can go on the plane. That makes your life a lot easier. Okay, so before you even leave, so before you do flights and all things like that, Hawaii has their own guidelines and regulations. I'm sure you've already heard about the quarantine. My best advice for you is to go to hdoa.hawaii.gov, and then that should bring you straight to the animal quarantine. Otherwise, just find the animal quarantine forms. That whole website tells you everything you need to know about quarantine times, how to pick up your animal, how much it's going to cost to pick up your animal, the vet's blood labs, tests, and when those need to be done by. It has everything you need to know. It's your first stop shop type thing where you get your information. The second place is to go on post and go to your vet. They should have a list. They have one for all the major OCONUS type areas, so Korea, Hawaii, any overseas, Germany. They usually have a list of regulations for those places, and that will also kind of tell you what you need to do for your animals. Quarantine for us was 120 days. I just asked my husband. He thinks they may have brought it down to 90, but like I said, check that website and that will tell you. So it's no longer having to be quarantined on island unless you don't do it while you're here. So while you are still on the mainland, you can quarantine your pet for 120 days, and that's in your home. There is a form you have to fill out and then mail it to Hawaii, and there's dates. So like I said, go to the forms page and they'll be on there. But there are a lot of fees that that the government's not going to pay for. And these blood tests, they're not going to pay for. The vet visits, the health certificates, they're not going to pay for those. So those are all out of pocket. To pick up your animal, it's called a direct airport release. That's $185. And you can pay for that before you even leave. So you can just go and pick up your animal without having to worry about paying for anything. But there is a $185 fee. And I believe that's per pet. You have blood tests and blood work that has to be done within a certain amount of days. The FAN, it's a FAVN rabies blood work. That's for each pet, and that has to be done 120 days before you get on island. So that's the two biggest things that need to be done are the FAVN rabies blood test and the quarantine. When you get your official orders, start it right away, or start your 120 days as soon as you can, because the wait time to even get it to Hawaii sometimes can take a while, or if you have to do it twice, if the blood work wasn't collected properly or something, you'd start all over. So just start as soon as you can. And then like I mentioned before, a health certificate. That has to be done within 10 days of getting onto the island. So if you're leaving from your duty station and then coming straight to Hawaii and you're not stopping in between, then just get your health certificate from your on-post vet. We actually visited family before we came. So we left Fort Rucker and we went to Washington, and then we actually left from California and then came over. So since there was a lapse in time, our health certificate that we got from Fort Rucker was no longer valid. So then we had to go to on-post in California and get a health certificate there, and they'll do that. It's still a military installation, so you can still make an appointment with them, or they'll even let you go. You can ask them if you can just go to a normal vet, and then if there's a vet nearby you that a military installation is not, usually they'll still do like a health certificate for you, and it's usually just like a regular checkup. And as long as your pets, we actually had to get our dog's teeth cleaned, but we found that out before we left Fort Rucker, so he didn't pass that part. So like I said, that's why you start this stuff early, just in case things like that happen and you're like, oh crap, I didn't even think about that, so I better get that done now. So like I said, health certificate within 10 days of coming on island. Okay, next is how you're going to get your pets to Hawaii. So every airline is different. If you have PCS orders, they cannot deny you to bring your pets. They're going to tell you that their flights that Delta or Alaska or whatever airline you're using, the one that we use said, oh no, we don't usually take pets. That does not apply to you if you have orders. If you are on orders, they cannot deny your pets. So if they tell you no, you ask for a manager, you ask for someone higher up, they cannot deny you. However, they do have restrictions on weight. There are different airlines that accept larger animals, so you need to go to each of like I said, the government does not help you with pets. You are on your own. So go to each website, check the weight limits and the size of the kennel that you need. Our dog is, like I said, he's 80 pounds. He's like a pit bull lab mix. So it had to be like a certain amount of room from his head to the top of the kennel and from each side and the back. I think we got him like an extra large kennel. And it cannot be a wire kennel. It has to be an enclosed kennel that usually has like the screws that go all the way around. But you zip tie it. So it has to have the screws in there, but you're going to be zip tying different areas of it also. The only things that they can have in the kennel is like a blanket or a towel. Do not leave collars or leashes on them. And then they can have a food and water bowl. Bring them to the airport. You will be dropping them off in a certain animal area before you even go through security. So like when you go to check in your bags, you usually have to go somewhere else to check in your animals separately. And then you'll pay for the fee too for them. And I think it's because you pay for them to fly. So the 185 direct release, that's for you to pick up your pet when you get to Hawaii. You also have to pay to have them flown there. So it can be cheaper if they're on the plane with you, and then it's a little bit more if they have to go under the plane. And then along with the weight restrictions and things like that, you also have to check. So Hawaii has their own regulations regarding pets. Obviously, it gets hot here. So if it's, I think my husband said, if the tarmac itself is going to be 85 degrees or higher, they will not allow animals to be transported. So you could get to the airport and be all ready to go, and then be told, okay, well, we can't fly them yet because it's too hot in Hawaii. So just be prepared. Luckily, we were flying, we got here in March, so we were fine. But if you're getting close to the summer months, it might get a lot more difficult. So just be aware of that. And like I said, you will be dropping them off before you even go to security. So you will get checked in, you'll check your animals in, they'll put like live animal stickers all over your kennel, and then you'll leave them. If they're going underneath the plane, you're going to leave them at a certain area. Like I said, our cat went on the plane with us, so we had him, but our dog had to go in a separate area. Okay, so you make the flight to Hawaii. You get off the plane. We had our cat in hand. Our cat still had to be picked up, though, when we got off the plane. So they took him from us when we got off the plane, and they just brought him to where our dog was, so that, because they have to get checked out, and they have to, like, just all the paperwork has to be re-evaluated and stuff at a certain building. It's called the animal quarantine. And when you come to Hawaii, the airport's here. You come out of, like, after you get your baggage and stuff, and you'd get picked up, or departures or arrivals or whatever, you'll get, if you're going to get a rental car, we'll get to that too, but it's not attached to the actual airport. You have to, like, drive around the corner. It's still in the same, like, area, but you still have to drive. It's like a 2-minute drive, but it's a separate building for animal quarantine, and that's where you pick up your animal. Okay, I think that's it for animals. If I've missed anything, or if you have other questions, just leave a comment below and I will try and answer it. Okay, so that was kind of pets before and after you get to Hawaii altogether. So let's kind of move back again. Okay, so on to the actual moving process. Just like any other PCS, they come, they check your house, they look how many rooms you have, how much stuff you may have, and they just, like, estimate how much they'll need, like, you know, boxes and stuff like that. The thing about going overseas is obviously your stuff goes on a boat, and I wasn't really, like, prepared to, like, I knew it was gonna be crates, but I guess, like, I didn't really picture just, you know, wood planks nailed together, and that's what my stuff was gonna be in. And I mean, like, they get in these wood crates that are just, like, awful looking. I'm just telling you that right now. But then they go into a containing, you know, container or whatever, and then get put on a ship, and that's what takes them over. So they're in essentially another box. But they are going overseas, and it does take a while to get there. So the tips that I kind of came across and wish I would have kind of known before, is a lot of people actually keep a storage unit on the mainland. I mean, unless you believe that you're going to be here longer than 3 years, and a lot of people do. A lot of people extend and they're here for longer. But if you don't, it's not a bad idea to just get a storage unit and not bring everything. And you can always buy some of the stuff that you need here. We didn't do that. We did choose to bring a lot of our, like, everything. We brought everything. But what I did do is I did leave a couple boxes of, like, sentimental value stuff with my parents. I had a friend who, they went over to Germany, and like 2 boxes were completely lost. Never found them. Like, they're gone. And one of the boxes contained a lot of her son's memorabilia stuff when he was a baby, things that are irreplaceable. Like, she had crocheted blankets in there that were given to her. So I was like, that is not going to happen because, you know, my son has similar things that my grandmother has made him, and I just would be devastated if I ever lost something like that. So if you do have things that you would just be absolutely crushed if they lost or ruined, I would suggest to leave them with a family member or someone that you trust and hang on to them until you get back to the mainland. It's just a gamble when you're going overseas, and you know, I have not heard of one single person that's gotten here and everything's intact. So that's just a little tip. Obviously, to each their own. And I mean, like I said, we brought everything except for just a couple boxes. And yeah, we had things that are broken. But, I mean, yeah. Car-wise, vehicles. Obviously, the government pays for one vehicle to be shipped. Um, but we have two vehicles, so we shipped my vehicle right when we got orders. Yes, that was on our own dime, and yes, we had to find our own shipping company to take my vehicle, because when they ship your government approved vehicle, they set everything up. They tell you the company you have to use and where to drop it off at. So it was kind of convenient with my vehicle because they actually came to our house and picked my car up, so that was kind of nice. And we were able to ship it way ahead of time. So we actually had a vehicle pretty much once we got here. Whereas my husband's vehicle, we shipped like right before we left, like literally like a day before we left. So that took about, oh gosh, it was probably 3 weeks before we received his car. So if you do only have one vehicle and you just don't have the means or the time or whatever to pay for that vehicle to be shipped on your own, or you just want the government to pay, hello, it's free, and you have to get a rental car, remember the rental car is on you and you have to pay for that. And like I said, the government will tell you which shipping company to use for that vehicle. And then you have to get like inspected, I guess, too, just to make sure. Like, and I don't know, my husband has like a huge truck and lifted and whatever, so we had to pay a little extra, but that's just because of his personal vehicle. Most of the time, I don't think you have to pay extra. Okay, so hotel wise, when you get onto the island and you don't have a place to go, this can get a little confusing, but there is that's a TLA hotel approved list. You do not have to stay on post. There are a cajillion different hotels that are actually TLA approved, and you can stay there. Halikoa, the one in Waikiki, is a military hotel, and you can stay there. They are TLA approved, but they do not accept pets. So if you have pets, there are hotels that do take them. You just have to call and, you know, find out which one's which. Again, TLA will pay for your hotel, but they will not pay for your pets. So the pets weren't issued to you or your spouse, whoever's in the military. So they are extra. So you have to pay for them. So I would, you know, weigh which hotels are cheaper, closer, whatever. Okay, so as of right now, you can stay in a hotel for 45 days, and they'll give you TLA and TLE. One's for the actual hotel, and then they give you food, an allowance for food. What I would have loved to have happen was to first know about this TLA approved hotel, because I did not want to stay on post, but whatever, we ended up doing that anyways. Is to find a hotel that either has like separate bedrooms or even, you know, just a larger room and with a kitchenette. If you are going to stay, if it's going to take a while for you to find housing, or if you just want to take your time because they're going to be paying you to stay in this hotel, then at least find a hotel that is somewhat home-like, because we were only in a hotel for a couple weeks, and it was like miserable with a cat, a dog. We have an almost 3-year-old, and it was just like a normal sized hotel room. I was bouncing off the walls, and it was just, there was no kitchenette in it. So I just highly recommend to try and find one that has you know, some amenities that are home-like. It'll make it a lot easier and just a lot less stressful. Uh, and then housing. So obviously, if you're going to live on post, you should have been on a waiting list. Like I said, you can be put on the waiting list before you even get arrive on island. We decided not to live on post because the area that I was looking to work, post was just too far away. I would have been driving like an hour. So we were trying to find somewhere in the middle that would keep us both, you know, kind of in the same time frame. So like I said, what I usually do is I start on the Facebook pages and I ask, you know, top places to live, and I look for safety, I look for distance to post, and I look for, you know, all of those type of things. And then I actually go onto websites, like, I can't remember what it's called, but they're like, they grade the neighborhood, they grade the city A to F, the neighborhoods A to F. It'll tell you crime rates, what the crimes are, and they'll give you like a map too, and you can click on like crime, and it'll show you different colors, and then like usually it's like the lighter the color, the less crime, and then the brighter red or whatever is more crime. And then it tells you about housing costs, ratings on schools, employment. So I always do that because it kind of gives me a better idea in numbers, and it gives you like an overall percentage of that city, like out of 100. And so like, you know, high 70s, 80s, and obviously 90s are awesome. So that's what I usually do. And you can just Google stuff, Google those type of ratings. I think you can like neighborhood ratings or something, and you can Google it, and it should pop up some sites. And then I also use Realtor. So once I narrow down the area that I want to live in, I use realtor.com, and I go on there and put in, you know, the price range that I'm looking for rent. And usually they'll have whoever is listing that house, even if it's for rent, they're usually like a realtor or a property manager, especially here. And then you can actually go to that property management site, and they have all kinds of other houses on there too. Or you can just contact them directly and then go from there. And then sometimes they can. So like with our house, I actually started to contact them when we weren't even on island yet, and the house that we're in now actually hadn't even been put on Realtor.com yet. So I actually pretty much secured this house before we even got to the island. So that was kind of helpful. Oh, and the big thing that I didn't even realize until we moved here, and thank goodness our house has them, solar panels. Oh my gosh. I've heard there are bills that are like upwards into the 400s for electric, and even about the same for water, because they don't have solar panels or solar water heaters. So solar panels are a huge thing here, and they will save you so much money. Our rent is decently priced. I mean, it's a little bit smaller. I think it's like 1,200 square feet, but we have solar panels, and let me just say, it has been a lifesaver, money saver. So highly recommend to make sure wherever you're going to live has solar panels. Okay, so I think that's it. If you have anything that maybe I didn't address, you can go ahead and leave a comment, and I'll try and answer it to the best of my abilities, or I can maybe try and find the answer for you. But I hope this helped and maybe gave you some things to think about that you haven't thought of already. And I just hope your transition to Hawaii is a smooth one, and you can just get here and start living the island life. It's amazing, and just safe travels. So aloha.